Hi, thank you for using my court coach. I'm Sarah and I'll be your instructor today as we talk about the request for or response to request for a separate trial form, also known as form FL-315. As with all our court forms, you want to fill in your identifying case caption information at the top. Below that, you're going to identify whether this is being attached to a request for order or a responsive declaration to request for order. This is not a standalone form, so it needs to be attached to one of these two forms. Below that, you're going to list if you are the petitioner or respondent and if you are requesting or opposing the request for issues to be heard as bifurcated matters. Below are the issues that can be heard as bifurcated matters. If you are the requesting party, you're going to mark the boxes that you are requesting to be heard as bifurcated matters. That can be permanent custody visitation of the minor children. It can be date of separation of the parties. It can be to request a valuation date for property. For instance, if you have a business, you may want to know prior to going to trial what the court wants it to be valued through, and that obviously will be helpful in providing the correct information to the court at trial. It can be to determine the validity of a premarital or a postmarital agreement. It can be to request an early status termination. You do have to wait at least 6 months from date of service, but if you do not want to wait till a trial on the entirety of the divorce, you can ask the court once that 6-month window has passed to terminate marital status at that time. If that is your request, you will also need to serve your preliminary declarations of disclosures. That consists of forms FL-140, FL-142, FL-150, and you will also want to make sure an FL-141, a declaration regarding service of declaration of disclosure and income and expense declaration, is on file. You will also need to identify all pension plans and retirement plans that the community has an interest in and that have been joined to the party. You can refer to Form FL-315 to see what sorts of plans need to be joined to this case before you file this request to terminate marital status early. Finally, mark box 5, 1E5. That asks the court to make the orders that it will need to do so as part of a bifurcation of marital status request. We'll go over that on pages 2 and 3. If you are making a request to bifurcate issues that have not been listed above, you're free to mark the box that says other and identify specifically what it is you're requesting the court to bifurcate. Of course, if you're responding to a request for bifurcation, you would mark the boxes that correctly identify the issues that you are responding to in the bifurcation request. In line 2, please indicate to the court if you are asking the court to conduct this bifurcated trial on the hearing date that's set in the request for order, or if you're asking the court to set a date for a trial on another date. If it is just a bifurcation of marital status, that can probably be heard on the hearing date. Those are typically not very lengthy matters. On the other hand, if you're asking, for instance, for custody visitation, a trial on a lengthier issue such as that, then you would want to mark box 2B. Line 3, you would want to identify what sorts of documents are attached that are being presented in support of this request. Typically, that's going to be supporting declarations, and you can mark this box, but if you are also citing legal authority, that would be a memorandum, and you could mark this box right here that says memorandum attached. Pages 2 and 3 have to do with waivers and acknowledgments and disclosures pertaining to the bifurcation of the status of the marriage. There are certain orders that the court has to make, and these are typically made in favor of the party who is not requesting the bifurcation. As we go through this form, I'm going to not refer to the parties as petitioner or respondent, but the requesting party and the responding party in terms of what boxes should be marked. Boxes 1 through 7 are all typically marked in favor of the requesting party. So we'll just go through those one by one. The division of property. You would want to mark the box that correctly identifies the role of the requesting party, whether they are petitioner or respondent. That party needs to indemnify and hold the other party from any taxes, reassessments, interest, and penalties that they would have to pay in connection with the division of community state that they would otherwise avoid but for this bifurcation of marital status. Health insurance, until judgment has been entered on all issues and has become final, you want to identify the party that is currently holding the health insurance coverage in place. That person needs to maintain that same policy pending final order in this case. And to the extent that coverage is not available, you want to mark the box that identifies the requesting party as the party that would be responsible for paying for any uncovered health insurance expenses that have been incurred as a result of the early termination of marital status. Probate homestead. A probate homestead allows a surviving spouse and children to remain in the deceased's house after he or she passes away. So you want to mark this box, and again, it's going to be the requesting party that must indemnify and hold the other party harmless from any adverse consequences if the bifurcation results in a loss of probate homestead. And same goes in box number 4 for probate family allowance. Paragraph 5 has to do with retirement benefits. The requesting party, whether that's petitioner or respondent, must indemnify and hold the other party harmless from any adverse consequences if the bifurcation results in the loss of rights with respect to any retirement benefits that that party would have otherwise been entitled to, but for the bifurcation of marital status. Same goes for Social Security benefits. Mark the box that identifies the requesting party. That party must indemnify and hold the other party harmless from adverse consequences that may result in the loss of Social Security benefits for the other party that they otherwise would have been entitled to, but for the early termination of marital status. Finally, in box 7 on this page, you want to mark that the requesting party must maintain the beneficiary designation specified for each non-probate transfer asset, and that this designation must remain in effect until a final judgment on all issues has been entered. Page 8 has to do with the individual retirement accounts. With a request to bifurcate marital status early, the court wants to be able to transfer 50% of each community account to the other party to preserve it. That does not mean that this court is making that a final decision in this case, but it's just to preserve those assets until it can make a final decision on this case. So you do need to include an attachment which lists the names of each of the IRAs, the account numbers, and the amount to be awarded temporarily to each party. Finally, paragraph number 9, if you are the requesting party, you likely will not mark this box, but if you are the responding party, you can request that the court order the requesting party to provide some sort of security upon showing that circumstances exist that would place a substantial burden of enforcement on either party's community property rights or eliminate the ability of the surviving party to enforce his or community property rights due to the bifurcation. So if you are going to make that a request, you can attach a form that would specify specifically what is the security interest you're asking to be ordered, and you can explain why in your declarations that's going to be attached. If there's any other conditions that you think are just and equitable for the court to consider as a part of making this or considering this request for early termination of marital status, then you can mark box 10 and ask the court to make the following orders. Again, more than likely, if you are filling this out, you are the responding party, not the requesting party. There are some attachments that we've just gone over. So in line number 5, you want to list the number of pages attached after this page, and then type your name, sign, and date, and this document is now ready to be filed as part of your request for order. I hope you found this helpful. Good luck.